right. All right, guys. Welcome to second day of the conference. I hope you're having fun. My name is Jorge Reyes. I am the business manager at Ortus, aka the singer. If you were here last night, you know why. That's a very weird looking picture as well. It was originally me kissing my daughter, and Esme did that. So thank you, Esme. So I have three great privileges today. One is to welcome you to the second day of the conference, and the second one is to take you through our favorite part of the conference. It's too loud, yeah. And it is the life is more than software. We at Ortus truly believe that. It's part of our core belief, and we try to live by it. And today, I want to move you into sharing that belief with us. So I'm going to take you through down. It's meant for you to think about what's happening around you. There are definitely people struggling through life, but hopefully and thankfully there are people willing to give their lives and dedicate their lives to helping others. So I know we are all busy persons, very busy doing software, but I wanted to invite you guys to hit the pause button on your life and try to think about people that are in need of help, and encourage you to think about ways that you can help other people in need. Be creative. There's always a way that you can help somebody. And remember, charity starts at home, and I hope you feel encouraged to do some good to others after today. Here's the thought: always help someone. You might be the only one that does. With that, we want to thank you because today you're being part of a great thing. Your ticket feeds one child for 4 months from that orphan house that we saw, Shalom, in El Salvador. So thank you so much for being here and being part of that. If you want to support Shalom, this is just one place where you can help, but you can find many other places where you can actually help other people in need. If you're interested in this particular mission, you can contact Manuel Monedero in the back. Stand up, Manuel. There you go, that's Manuel. He's planning a mission trip this year, so you feel free to reach out to him. My third privilege is to introduce you to Captain Container, aka John Clausen.
Captain Container. Wow. How's everybody doing this morning? Ready for another day of learning? Is anybody taking anything back that they're taking anything away that they're going to take back to their work and use it to improve their products? Awesome. Okay, well, my name is John Clausen. I have been with Ortus Solutions since, Luis, is it 2016 now? It's 15? 2016. The Captain Container moniker comes from the fact that at one point I started playing around with Docker and decided this command box thing needs to be encapsulated and used, and it's awesome. And today we run most of our applications in containers, including our development environments, our staging environments, and our production environments. So let's talk a little bit about that space, along with a couple other spaces that Ortus has and continues to invest heavily in. So there's containerization. So let's look at some of the accomplishments since 2016. The first Ortus Solutions Docker image became available in 2017, in April of 2017, as a matter of fact, right before Into the Box. And since that time, we've had over 50,000 pulls of Ortus Solutions Docker images. Now, those pulls, first of all, remember when somebody's spooling up a development environment, they're only pulling that once. So those pulls are coming from people trying it out. They're coming from people spooling up images in their development environments. They're coming from CI builds in their staging and production environments. And that's a pretty significant accomplishment to have that many pulls already for an image that's that new. At this point, we have 123 different tag flavors up there. If you go up to hub.docker.com and you search for command box, you're gonna come to that page, and you can see all the different variations and tags that are available. You've got images with Lucy 5, Lucy 4, older versions of Lucy, older versions of Adobe, Adobe 2010, 11, 16, 18. 18 currently is now running on Java 11, and as soon as there's some kinks worked out in Lucy 5.3, we'll also be running that on Java 11 as well. We have really dedicated ourselves to making it easy to onboard and have a bunch of configuration options out of the box that you can use to spool up your ColdFusion CFML apps in Docker. And in addition to that, we've got a growing community of support and network contributions. Some things that we've done in the past 2 years include the handling of Docker secrets. That was a community submission. We've got folks who are really interested in improving that product, and the community around the Docker images continues to grow. So let's take a look at what our strategy is at this present and going forward. First of all, it's to facilitate the deployment of CFML apps, any engine, anywhere, except presently, did you put that in? Okay. except presently we're not going to be supporting Windows containers. And we've had some requests for that. The main issue is it comes to resources. It comes to a parallel development pipeline. And because more and more people are deploying on AWS and other infrastructure, and Windows is capable of running Linux containers, the demand seems to be reducing from what interest was expressed about a year ago. Also, to provide simple and rich mechanisms for runtime configuration, we've got a lot of environment variables we currently support. You pass those environment variables in when you start your container, and it changes the configuration, hides the administration, sets the engine, does all sorts of CF config options, and Brad has worked very hard. Our initial containers, we had to sort of manually handle the whole CF config thing, and Brad has taken a lot of the things that we were doing in the containers. He's integrated into that CF config module, and so now, other than rich structures like mail servers and data sources, almost any administrative option that you would need that is either a Boolean, a textual value in your administration for Lucy or Cold Fusion can be passed in via environment variables. Also, develop, build, deploy on all tiers with the same configuration and conventions. CF-config also makes that really easy. So does your server JSON by supporting the environment variables natively as well. There's also another module that's bundled into our Docker images called .env, which gives you a convention for providing a file, which includes environmental information that might be specific to that tier, the development, staging, production environment. More strategies, in addition is to provide additional tooling and instruction to increase that adoption. We think that containerization it makes sense. It solves a common problem that we see with developers and deployment of applications, in that your development environments and your staging environments don't mimic the production environments, and so it lessens the chance for things to go south as you move your applications between those tiers. Also, to provide support and assistance for development teams through transition, and we've done some of that. You're going to actually hear from somebody later today whose team we have participated heavily with, and we're really happy to help them in that transition to moving to Docker, and we hope they're happy with it. Faster, lighter, easier configuration, and more features. Right now, we've got some images out there. They're fairly hefty images, given the nature that they have to have a JVM, they have to have the engine installed, but we continue to look at ways we can make those lighter, easier, and start up faster. So, for example, on Java 11 right now, and I'm waiting to see what Lucy's going to look like, but on Java 11, the 2018 container right now, the application server starts up, is running and serving in less than 5 seconds, which is fantastic. So we want to continue to do things like that. So play around with Docker and start shipping your applications on it. I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised if you haven't played already. Another area we're talking a lot about today, and we've been talking a lot about in this conference, is on your hats, it's on your t-shirts, is modernization. And as you heard Louis say in his very dramatic fashion, because he's Latin and he's a very dramatic man, is modernize or die. So let's take a look at some of the modernization strategies we looked at Ortus Solutions. First of all, it's great. We all talk about modernizing and converting and refactoring big applications, but the truth is that not everyone is on board, specifically your stakeholders and the people writing the checks with the full rewrites. So we want to help support fearless progressive enhancement, and there's ways to do that. When we talk about microservices, we talk about modularizing your code so that you can improve and enhance and modernize segments of it rather than having to continue to look at this big, intimidating, monolithic application. And we want to help continue to support that by giving you strategies, by giving you examples. Microservices architecture to sunset legacy apps. So let me give an example. We had a client that approached us a couple years ago, and they had an old legacy application, been around for about 15 years, had a SQL Server database. That database had been modernized and customized, and like everything, over time it starts to grow, and sometimes the data models that were implemented along the way to support features they were adding just didn't make sense. So rather than attempt to develop a new application around that existing database, we simply developed a microservice to consume that database and provide the data that we needed, and that microservice runs and we talk to the old database, and so there are old administrative interfaces and things like that continue to work until we sunset and transition those. But we no longer need to worry about dealing with that database directly. We simply have a microservice that our applications talk to interface with and pick up new data from that old SQL Server database. And eventually that will go away, but it allows us an elegant way to sunset that over time. Keep up with your tool set. Semper Decens, which means always learning. There's a lot of emerging tool sets out there. Some of them are great. Some of them are flashes in the pan. Same thing with programming languages out there. But keep up with the available options out here. Conferences like this are a fantastic way to do that. So make sure you're looking at those things. And even though you got to be careful with some of the shiny new pennies out there, make sure you set aside time to play. If your work environment doesn't support that and doesn't allow that, maybe that's an opportunity for you to champion that, because if we don't play, we don't take that time, and I speak from experience with this. Sometimes the client work gets so heavy that we don't go back and take time to play with new technologies. And in doing so, we become very, very narrow on our focus, and we don't think about things and think about the bigger picture. Other aspects of it is that in modernization right now, perceived latency is king. So when you start with a need to modernize, start looking at where your pain points are from a latency standpoint. Less than 3 seconds is the general goal, and anything more than that, customers are going to abandon or at least complain about your pages. Mobile and progressive application considerations make modularization and microservices essential, not optional. Gone are the days when it was acceptable to develop two completely separate versions of an application with two separate code bases for data or access between those two applications. Now we're talking about microservices. Now we're talking about modules. Now we're talking about flexibility and deployment, and that's not optional anymore. And then pre-serializing your data. We're fortunate as CFML developers that looping a query is pretty similar to looping an array of structs, but at the same time, as you start looking at refactoring, start thinking about the format and the transformation that you want to have that data in. Adapt your models to handle and consume that serialized data, and then over time begin the process of adapting your code and your microservices to deliver that data in a much more efficient way. So that's modernization. And the last piece I want to talk to you about is search, because we continue to make a very heavy investment in search. We believe that it is becoming, with Google becoming so ubiquitous and other search engines becoming so good at delivering relevant results, we believe that applications need to begin to do that too. And if you're not looking at search and you're not implementing new strategies for it, we believe you're in danger of getting behind. So we've made a lot of progress in search. The first CB Elasticsearch module was also released in early 2017, and since that time we've made a heavy investment in search because our client and their digital spaces demand it. CB Elasticsearch, that module continues heavy development, and we take advantage of the lessons we're learning. We have a lot of work that we do that is very, very search focused. Since we released that module in 2017, we have over 1,800 installs, 25 iterative releases since that time. We also leverage the Jest client, the Java Jest client, which is mature, stable, and developed. So, like for example, with Elasticsearch 7 becoming available, the client to consume that is already available. We just need to go and adapt our code to do that. And the release to support 7 will be a breaking change. It will break backward compatibility. But we have the ability to quickly move forward as new versions and new features of Elasticsearch become available. One thing we just recently added in the Elasticsearch module, Saeed, one of our newest team members, added the ability to highlight. So when you do a search now, you can highlight, just like you see on Google, what keywords matched up when documents come back. And each document contains metadata on which words matched and which fields match those. Extensible and flexible client architecture. You can roll your own clients if you want to. If you want to use a socket-based client or any other Java library or whatever, the client itself has an interface. You can easily override that within the module. So that being said, let's look at some of the patterns here. We're increasingly seeing UI starting to consume only Elasticsearch data as a non-authoritative NoSQL replacement, which means that the front end interacting with databases, the days of the front end interacting with databases are going away. I think that's very accurate, and we're seeing more and more of that all the time. We're also seeing administrative interfaces focused only on the redundancy of maintaining that authoritative SQL Server data or SQL data in their RDBMS, and that data then becomes auto-serialized into search, and once again, the public-facing aspects of those applications are only serving up the search serialized data. We're also seeing that, hey, we need to remove some common problems that we're seeing with our clients and with our search work. One is the serialization and reindexing of large data sets. Right now, in Elasticsearch, when you change one little field type in a very big set of documents, it's a real pain. And so we're developing tools for our modules to make that easier, aliasing and automatic reindexing, things like that. And we just want to keep our options open in a growing space. Logging, analytics, search insight. And there's a lot of changing paradigms in that. Some of you may have heard of the Elk Stack, for example. Right now, we have a module that's in development. We've been pretty busy on it, but we intend in the next 12 months to get that out there, called Stashbox. And it leverages this Elastic Stack and allows you rich analytics on your search data, but also gives you a place to analyze log and error data as well. That space is changing rapidly. And going forward down the road, the space is expanding. So there's a new search engine on the block. We're taking time to play with it. It's Redis Search. There are some advantages it has over Elasticsearch. There are some disadvantages. But that is something we're looking at very heavily and saying, okay, maybe we need to look at a different way to handle search. One of the options Eric and myself have been talking about this week is looking at an implementation like looking at an implementation where we have a front-end interfaced search module, and then that has different providers. So you can have an Elasticsearch provider or a Redis provider and not have to necessarily, and be able to switch at ease if you choose to. So that space is expanding, and look for some module goodness to a Coldbox MVC platform near you. And with that, containerization, modernization, and search. Those are three areas that we see as absolutely essential to maintain a heavy presence and continue heavy development and focus on at Ortus Solutions, and I think they're worth your time as well. So, up next, the man, the myth, the legend, the evangelizer, Brad Wood.
Who are you calling heavy? I'm not sure when the intro started. How long ago was he talking about me? No. Thank you. All right, here we go. So, lots of stuff to... I was like moving a heavy filing cabinet across the floor is what that sound effect was. Okay, so yesterday I was up here telling you about the state of the command box. Today we have the state of the spec, which of course is test box. In test box we have bundles and specs that we do. And everyone's going to go home and immediately start writing tons of tests, right? Just repeat after me. We will write tests. The swinging pendulum, stare deeply into it. So test box is 6 years old in December. It all started with Mockbox. It was a direct replacement for MX Unit, which was the main testing framework in the Cold Fusion space. MX Unit started to fall into a bit of abandonment from people just moving on to other languages and things. And so that's a torch that we picked up, and now TestBox has become the de facto standard for CFML testing. We've had all-time downloads of 141,000 downloads of TestBox. I don't know what people are doing with it. Maybe they're like propping their monitors up with it or something, but they're downloading it. It's out there. The 2X series started back in 2014, had 8 minor releases, and the TestBox 3X series starts today at this conference. As we're officially releasing TestBox 3. So, I know, long time coming. Big thanks to Israel, who helped us do a bunch of the new UI updates on that. It's a big team effort, so always fun to get new Ortus people into the products, inject some new insight. TestBox 2.5 had asynchronous fixes, some Travis integrations, better aggregation of suites. In 2.6, we added some more functional before, after, and around handlers to give you some more verbose options with your test. We improved performance and mocking methods, some eager failures. A lot of enhancements there. 2.7, compatibility stuff for Lucy, some interception points, concurrency, ORM mocking. 2.8 brought recursive parameter on the runner, some exclude labels, so a nice stream of features. 3.0 is a fairly big release for us. We've done a massive UI update for all of the reporters. So when you run your test in the browser, the HTML that you see has been completely reworked to try to get information out there that looks good. We've added CB streams at the core. If anybody went to Luis's session yesterday on CB streams, we've been adding that in everywhere. And of course, code coverage is one of our biggest features of TestBox 3, and I have a session on that later on. And of course, there's some mocking enhancements, and we've also deprecated support for a couple ColdFusion engines. We're trying to keep moving stuff forward, but we have to kind of drop some of those older ColdFusion engines to be able to move into the future with TestBox. Code coverage, and I'll just briefly describe it because I don't want to steal all the thunder from my talk, which actually I think might be after this session. I'll just stay up here and we'll just do this, okay? No. So code coverage is the ability to run your test and see how much of your application was actually hit by your test. You know, you're only testing like 50% of your code, 30%, 99%, right? It was really fun is to play like a betting game. You take bets on how much code coverage you think you have, and then you run the code coverage thing and you find out who was right and who was wrong. We may have done that internally at Ortus with some of our products. So I have a whole session talking about this. You can see in this particular example, 36% of the lines of code in this application were run as part of the unit testing suite. So that leaves a big number of percentage that can be improved. I won't tell you what Ortus product this represents, but if you see the file names, you might guess. But yes, you get a lot of deep introspection. You get code coverage, statistics on each line, and this is all done in tandem with a Fusion Reactor license. Drills all the way down to a file level, and you can see line by line, this line of code was run, this line of code was run, this line of code was not run, the ones marked in red. And so you know exactly what pieces, little nooks and crannies of your app are being missed. So come back for my whole entire session on code coverage if you want more on that. So the revamped UI, the HTML runners have been updated and prettified. We've added code coverage data into the top. You see the code coverage statistics. That's all included. All of the runners have it. Even the TestBox run command from the command line has code coverage built into it. We've also added some better visibility for failures. When your test goes south, the question you always have is, well, what's broken? And sometimes if you get an error or an exception, it's not always clear exactly what's failing. So we've tried to kind of pull out and highlight the most important bits of information there on the screen, including maybe the line of code that threw the exception to help you have faster iterations on getting your test running again. We've also started a kind of a cool feature called the Static Test Visualizer. This allows you to take the JSON spit out from TestBox, and then after the fact be able to load that up and view what your test results were without rerunning them from scratch. So it's an HTML file that can reload the entire HTML reporter off of a static set of JSON. So that's great for CI, for continuous integration, going back and viewing previous test runs. Also great portability. Now you can have an HTML file and a JavaScript file that can be archived somewhere and pulled back out and viewed later. So we have a lot of features coming for that. All right, future things are TestBox modules. This will be, yes, there's at least one person very excited. I'm also excited, maybe not as much as Eric. So modules are a first-class citizen of the ColdBox framework, and by proxy of the ContentBox CMS, and then of the CommandBox CLI. And modules are really great because they give you this amazing extension point where you can give people this installable, package manageable, forge boxable, chunk of functionality, and you drop it into your MVC or your CLI, your CMS, and it latches itself on, and it can add interceptors and add functionalities and things. So TestBox is finally going to receive some module goodness because we don't have super good ways to distribute add-ons or base specs or listeners or functionalities to TestBox. It's always a bit of a manual installation to try to do that. So Eric says he's going to have like 8 new modules on ForgeBox when this rolls out in a week. 7 in 1 hour. In 1 hour, folks, you will have 7 modules. Like the little meme of the cat on the keyboard. Right. So that is a big thing that'll be coming soon down the pipe for TestBox. Very excited. We're going to focus on API testing. because a lot of the tests we're writing these days are API tests, because we're writing a lot of APIs, and we did a lot of enhancements already, and want to continue to enhance your API testing as well as API mocking. When you test APIs, it's not always a typical request. You have headers coming in, you have HTTP bodies and responses, and so we want to make sure you have all the tools available. And of course, we'll look at integrating integrated, which is another one of Eric's awesome little functionalities he built for TestBox to give you this great fluent DSL for testing your applications. Of course, Selenium, Cypress integrations, and some Gherkin support in the core for those of you pickle fans. So, lots of stuff on the roadmap for TestBox. We are very excited. And with that, I will give you Senor Gavino Picken.
Okay, thanks everybody. Everyone having fun? Well, that's about the end. So we're here to talk about Content Box. So yesterday we talked about a lot of boxes. We still got more boxes, lots and lots of boxes. CF Live was actually doing a competition on how many boxes, and Luis and Michael said, who can guess all 10 boxes? And I'm like, there's way more than 10. Even Luis lost track of the boxes. But today we're talking about Content Box. So the state of the content, so the last year has been a great year. We've done a lot of customer work, and so our roadmap last year did not get fully developed, but what we did do was based around what customers actually needed. So it's done a lot of good work. We're happy with the progress still. We did a lot of work on container-based deploys. Basically, most of the customers that I work with now, we're all working towards Docker deploys, and so we did a lot of work in there. So our Content Box setup is really improving there. If you have time, my second to last session of the day is me talking about Content Box and containers, so come check it out if you're interested. A lot of security improvements. We're really focused on security. A lot of work with government agencies and everything. They really like to lock down everything, so we've done a lot of work there. And pretty surprising number, we had 35,000 total downloads of Content Box CMS now, so we're really happy with that. In the last year, we've been busy. We smashed 90 bugs. We implemented 20 new features, and we have 30 improvements. So, like I said, we had a busy year, a lot of great stuff. And that 4.x series in 2018 is still going strong. We've had 4 releases, and we got a few more coming at you. So here's a bit of look at the last 12 months. So again, ColdBox, obviously Content Box, for those of you who don't know, is basically a module inside of ColdBox. So we get all the goodness. So every time Luis throws out something new in ColdBox, we get it in Content Box. So all the slides yesterday talked about all those cool new features. Content Box has all that as well. So that was a big update to get the Content Box, the ColdBox 5 core, and we did a lot more work on the custom code module, so that allows you to actually deploy better for Docker. So that was a big improvement, and that's made my life way easier. And trust me, everyone who's using Content Box is loving that. A lot of container improvements, a lot of support from environment variables, overriding settings and everything else. So when you deploy to different locations, your environment variables will kick in automatically for you. We went command box driven, so a lot of the built-in UI features that we're relying on ForgeBox internally, we've removed for security reasons, and now command box makes it even easier to upgrade. Any of those who tried to upgrade Content Box before, if you're on Windows especially, you would have had a nightmare with file locking and everything else, but command box makes it so easy. It's crazy. Did a lot of work on the core admin themes and modules and widgets. Multi-factor authentication was a big thing for some of our clients, and we rolled that out, and we've done some improvements since, and that's been awesome. The module interception points is really cool. I know, cool. I love saying cool. Interception points are really awesome. We work with them a lot with jQuery and everything else, and that's one thing that ColdBox does so well is interceptors. And once you start using them, you really see how extendable Content Box is. So I did a workshop the other day, and that was like one of the highlights I wanted to bring through, because Content Box itself as a CMS, it's a black box module, but through interception points you can make it do anything. And so we showed off some features, and it's really working really well for a lot of clients. Module routing is important too. We got all the beauty now with the ColdBox 5 routing inside your module, so you can build your own modules and use that. And the reset password flow was implemented for some security things. 4.1 was tons of fixes. Like I said, we squashed a lot of bugs this year. We also upgraded the multimedia manager, trying to make that newer. It's a Really nice tool now. We've got all the cropping features and all that you'd come to expect from most tools. Also, we have more interception points. 5.1 came in from Coldbox, and we've updated all the search services as well, so big improvement there. We worked on refactoring the importers and exporters to make them more efficient, especially moving between development tiers, so you can move stuff from staging to production easier with your testing flow. And also, Adobe broke some stuff, we fixed some stuff. And we also did some work on transaction tests through Coldbox 5.3 as well. So, a lot happening. But again, we were working a lot on scalability. Out of the box with containers and everything else, we have cache box leverage right there for you. You can scale this with ease. Like I said, the containers setup that we have, it comes running out of the box with scaling. We have internal databases, embedded databases and everything, so you can get up and running quickly. Multi-factor authentication is something people have been asking for a long time, and we rolled that out. It's actually set up with, Luis at the architectural level said, hey, let's make a provider base, so if we don't have a provider that you want, you can write your own. So it comes with email by default, but you can have SMS messages, which we implemented for a couple of customers through AWS. But you guys can use Okta or Google Auth or whatever you want, write it, throw it up on ForgeBox, let everybody use it. We have the whole user enrollment process too, so you can roll that out. You have admin policies where you can say everyone has to use it or everyone can use it. You can choose, I only want them to use this provider, whatnot. A lot of flexibility there, and like I said, the customers are using it, really liking it. Again, another big government policy that you have to follow. So we revamped the container images massively. So if anyone tried to use it before, trust me, they're a lot better. We had a couple of bugs in there depending on what you're trying to do before. We fixed a lot of that, so please give it another try. But we have the customer installers built in. Like I said, we auto session and cache distribute, so when you want to spin it up in a swarm, it's already cluster friendly. Those environment variables you set inside of your Docker swarm instantly get changed into settings too. So if you want to override your mail settings on a particular swarm or whatnot, environment variables will let you do that automatically. It's really great. We have Redis and Couchbase Compose if you want to use something other than database for caching, which we recommend. So we have a Compose file for you, so you can get it up and running locally. You have a Couchbase or a Redis server spun up on your local machine, so you can test it and see how the caching works. And we're built in image health checks, and we give you an environment variable for that too. So if you want to hit a particular page in your app to see if it's up and running for your health check, we allow you to do that too. So let's see what's coming. So a 4-year roadmap. Like all of our other major products, we're trying to do like a major release every 2 years. So 2019, we're trying to basically work on that 4X and get that 5.x ready. So we'll be releasing the 5 next year. So we'll have the release candidate in the final next year. And like some of the other major products, we're going to long-term support for that. So ContentBox 4 will go into long-term support in 2020. The next year we'll start working on 5X and 6 alpha, and then 2022 we're going to roll out 6.0, and then 5 will go into long-term support. So every 2 years is a major. So what are we going to try and do in that next version? Well, API first. We keep mentioning API, a little bit of a trend there. So we're definitely working on APIs a lot, and we want to make sure ContentBox is up and running for everything you need. So we're going to set up everything through an API for ContentBox. So you're going to be able to see multiple UIs coming from this. We want to give everyone the option to having mobile or spa apps. We're going to use Vue.js in the back end. So API first means that everything will be available through that. So the Momentifier, Luis's brand new spanking fast little tool, is going to be integrated to make it even faster. And if that's not fast enough, we're going to add streams too. Coldbox 6 obviously is coming. So again, we get all those benefits. So you saw a lot of things coming there. And Coldbox Elixir and Webpack is going to be integrated to make all of our themes better, faster, easier, as well as the core admin and everything else too. So we're really excited to have that in there. If anyone's worked with the old themes, the grunt and everything, Bower, gosh, I hate that stuff. Alexa makes it great because it does what you need it to do. You don't usually have to change anything. So if you're a designer or developer, then these are the changes we're going to work for you. So again, that multiple UI is going to be great for you, because if you don't like one setup, you can always integrate your own too. The ContentBox custom type builder is finally almost here. So we've been doing a lot of work with a couple of clients and actually building this out for them. They're prototyping for us, and we're working through it and making sure that it does everything we want it to do. So it's working great for them. They're big fans, and we're going to roll that back into the core here pretty soon. We're going to revamp all the themes. Like I said, we want to make sure everything's running Elixir so we can get things running smooth. And then part of that custom content type builder, the technology we're using for that is going to allow us to have a layout builder too. So themes are one of the weak points, I think, in Content Box right now, and I really think once we get a layout builder in there, it's going to make it even easier for you guys to get in there and use it. So that'll help the developers and the designers here. We'll add the inline editor for convenience. Command box theme generator is going to be updated so you can roll out some default themes. The ones we have are great, but they're very specialized, so we want to make it easier for you if you want to start your own. So we'll start with a bootstrap one and probably try and throw out a tailwind and maybe a foundation template, and that way you guys got a good starting point so you can rock your own ones. And then Content Box JS, basically since we're going to be moving more to the front end and API base, we want to give you a Content Box JavaScript object that will help you make those API calls, help you do the authentication, everything else. So we'll try and abstract away some of the pieces for you and just give you a nice JavaScript object so you can call it from Vue, React, or whatever you want. So that's going to be a big improvement too. Now authors. Some of you guys might just be authors, so we obviously need to make that more important. So we're going to make a reactive admin UI, make it more user-friendly. We're going to add a content scheduler too, so that way your Content Box app is going to be, tied into your other social media and everything else. Whenever we're doing stuff like into the box, we know how much pain it can be to roll out blog posts and social media here and there and everywhere. We want to make it easier. We want to make it so you can actually see your schedule and see what's going to be going out when and why and where from. We're going to be doing a database-driven media manager too. So we have the media manager now, which is file-based, but we can't store meta information, we can't categorize items, etc. So we're going to upgrade that, add some sugar on top to make it better for you. We're also going to revamp the menu builder to give you better options. So this way, if you have a mobile app or another app, you can actually set up multiple different levels of menus. So this is the desktop menu builder. We have a mobile menu builder, so you can sort of customize it on the fly. And we're going to introduce change sets. That way you can work on lots of content and release it all at once. So we got a lot of work going on in Content Box, a lot of things coming. Again, our customers that we work with every day help us drive it, make it a better product. So please, if you haven't checked it out in a while, check it out and let us know what we can do to make it better. We want more of you guys using it, and we all win if that happens. So. Next, the module maestro, Eric Peterson. Thanks, everybody.
Alrighty. I do love modules. I have a lot. They're amazing. The 500 are not mine. But ForgeBox has over 500 different packages. Cold Box, Command Box, Content Box, soon Test Box. Like I said, I will have about 7 ready to go. But we wanted to highlight a few because with 500 and always changing, new versions, that 500 number did not include new versions released, right? There's a lot coming by, so I'm going to take you on a quick whirlwind tour of some community modules and finish up with some of the Ortus sponsored projects. If these look awesome to you, there is an in-depth session today by Mr. John Clausen, 10 and 50, something like that. You can go learn more about each of these modules because this is just going to make you want to use them, not know how to use them. Here we go. Mementifier, you might have heard it thrown around. You have a component, you want it to be a struct, and you want that to happen fast. This is especially handy for anything using the Hibernate ORM. It is very quick, great for APIs, and very easy to integrate into your projects. The lovely thing about using the Coldbox module is this memento call that you stick on your components all you need, and Wirebox takes care of the rest. It's very smart. Hyper. Hyper is one of my very loved modules that if you haven't heard about it, you'll want to use it after. It is an HTTP builder. It means you don't have to write that weird HTTP script, tags and script nonsense. But its superpower if you've ever worked with an API and you have to send the same header, the same base URL, and the same all these things, is you can pre-configure it with Wirebox. This example makes a GitHub client, throws in your GitHub token, and now whenever you inject it, you don't have to specify all that every time. Even if you're not using that superpower, it's just so nice not to have to write that same HTTP wrapper every time. So, hyper. CF Format is a module by John Berquist. When it came out, I immediately put it to work trying to get it into all of our CI processes at Ortus because it formats your CFC files. You have a rules file in the repo, it formats it. I can stop worrying about the missing space between this bracket or parenthesis that Luis always rejects my pull requests for. And you can too. The CF format file has most of the changes you want, so if you're picky and you hate the way we format our code, format it your way, it's all fine. It's a command box module, CF format. The route visualizer is a cold box module, and for me this is indispensable as we've gone to a hierarchical MVC structure. Routes now live inside their different modules. You can have many levels of nested modules, and for me, the first thing I think about getting into a new application is how do I know what this URL hits in my application? What handler does it hit? So instead of digging through all your module files, install the route visualizer, dev dependency. When you hit the route, you see everything that can match in the right order. You can dig into the module routing itself. No more guessing which files might or may not have routes. Those are some bigger ones, but we have very simple, no configuration, no interaction really needed modules like cores. I'm sure most of you have seen a cores error and were sad, especially as you Googled, how do I fix this? You install this module, that's the answer. And it will work out of the box. Adds all the right headers, all the right settings whenever it needs it. If you do need stricter control, you can adjust all those settings to your heart's desire. Recently, I've been using this as actually a strict dev dependency, where on my local, they're two separate servers, but on production, they're going to be on the same domain. Works great there too, so I don't have to think about that. On the subject of really quick ones, environment header. I love this. Great for developing APIs. You install this, you'll get an X Coldbox env header. It will be the current environment. You didn't have to do anything. You just installed something. I love modules. They're so cool. There's a little whirlwind of the community. Let's take you through a few of our bigger modules and the releases there. First off, Coldbox Elixir version 3 was released earlier this year. It was completely rewritten on top of Webpack so that we can take advantage of all the modern JavaScript stuff. The best news for you is you don't need to know any Webpack. You're welcome. And doing that gave us watch support, very performant watch support, module support. Each of your modules can describe their own changes now. We have a content box helper so that you can mix all of inside content box and their conventions. The smart asset management's nice, where if you misspelled a URL path in your CSS, it's going to yell at you instead of just not showing it on the page. And if you do need to, you got everything in Webpack that you can jump into. Hopefully you don't need to. View support out of the box transforms your JavaScript. If this means nothing to any of you, just know that you can do all the cool stuff you want without having to know how. So, what's next? More recipes. Like I said, we have a Vue recipe. We'll be adding React, Angular. If you have a favorite, you can come talk to us. If you're an Ember fan, Svelte, how do you say that? Anyway, any of the crazy front-end frameworks. Elm. If you are an Elm fan, come talk to me because I'm curious. Anyways, that is Elixir. Got two more for you. QB. QB is our query builder. If you've ever had the joy of concatenating your own SQL strings, you will love QB because you can do it in any order. It can enable some cool object-oriented ways of doing queries. It's good not just for complex, but for simple queries, because now you don't even have to worry about what grammar you're running. Switch from MySQL to Postgres with a simple setting. So a couple new features for QB. It's gone through, I think it's on 5 point, nope. It's on some awesome release number. It supports returning for the grammars that use that. You can return different fields as you insert. It has automatic debugging set up, or debug logging, I should say. So if in your Wirebox you set up QB to be part of that logging, you'll see it in your console. Common table expressions, derived subtables, unions, some pretty advanced SQL topics added. Dan Switzer, I don't know if he's here, but he's awesome. Thank you for that. A lot of bug fixes, super fast. We love QB, and you will too. Next for QB, we're always looking to add more grammars. If you have a favorite grammar, SQLite, H2, maybe DB2 from IBM, any of those that you need to support, we're looking at adding those. CB debugger support. It's my goal to resurrect the CB debugger module and make it modern and useful. So that support would be showing every query you ran on a page, help you find out where you might be running more than you think. Database chunking, for those of you who decide that pulling 50,000 records at a time is something you need for your application, we'll make it a little more memory efficient there for you. And of course, streams will be a huge part in that, processing those in parallel. The last one I want to talk about is Quick. For any of you who decided to go to Luis's session instead of mine, I forgive you. It's taking me all night. Quick is our cold box ORM engine. If ORM fills you with nightmares, this is not the same. It's a lightweight, all written in CFML. You can dive into the source code. In fact, we've had many of you here that have and have contributed. Thank you so much. Version 2 was released on Tuesday. Revamped relationships, more powerful key types, supporting more database structures. Basically, however you get your primary keys, we can handle it. There's some massive performance increases. It is as fast as CBORM, unless you're using Lucy 5, in which case it's even faster. All right? It rivals query execute in that time. There is a virtual service and a CBORM compatibility layer to help you get started quick for your other applications. You can use, I don't think I mentioned this yesterday in the session, you can use column aliases as well as column names in your queries now, those of you who have been using Quick. That's a very nice developer experience. And so much more. Quick is amazing. If you didn't get a chance to learn about it, we put the slides up yesterday, and I believe all of you will have access to the sessions. Let's talk about what's next. Global scopes. We have local scopes in Quick right now, but sometimes you want that scope applied every time on a certain model. We'll be adding that. We'll be improving the integration test story. Right now, you can set it up and it works great. We want to make it so you don't have to set it up yourself. And of course, we'll always be watching the performance enhancements to make it as fast as possible. Quick really is a next-gen ORM for cold box. And if you've never used ORM, if you've used it before, if you've ever wanted a better idea of how to model your models in your database, come take a look at Quick. So those are the big modules that we want to talk about from Ortus. We have plenty more. ForgeBox is always releasing more. And we'd love to see yours up there. Put it up, blog about it, let us know. We'd love to see what you have to share with us. With that, I'd like to introduce Ian Woodward to talk to us about their experience and story.
Hello. This on? Oh, there we go. Hey, everybody. I'm Ian, and thank you, Ortus, for giving me the opportunity to speak today. I'll try to make this quick because I know that we're running out of time here. I work with Avoid Travel, and today I'm going to talk to you about how, over the past few years, we've been working to handle our technical debt while building our business and continue to modernize. I'm Ian. I'm the Senior Director of Product Development over at Avoya Travel, and I've been working as a designer, developer, manager, freelance, in-house, everything you can think of in between for about 10 plus years, and the last 6 or so years have been with Avoya Travel. Avoya Travel is a travel company, and we aim to be the #1 vacation platform in the world. We are on Cold Fusion. We're on Lucy right now. We employ over 170 employees, and we have a network of 1,500 plus independent travel agencies. And essentially what we do is we take travelers and we connect them to those travel agencies. Over the past 12 months or so, we have had somewhere in the realm of 200,000 travelers travel with us. So this week, the whole theme is around modernize or die, right? Little bit of a negative message, but also very true. And we've been learning that lesson both the hard way and the easy way, a lot of times with Ortus. And while that is true, modernization can also be the key to a lot of positive things. So, for instance, happier teams, better development practices, more resilient code and products, and great user experiences. At the end of the day, that's what we're all working towards here, right? Is great products that can help us build business and make more money. So here's our deep thought for the day. Modernization can be an opportunity instead of a cost, so that in the future, you can avoid further opportunity cost. So let's get into it. Modernization. Why, when, and what should we choose to modernize? You need the right tools for the job, right? If you don't have the right tools for the job, then your developers, or you if you are a developer, you're not going to be efficient. You're not going to be able to work together as a team. And overall, you won't be able to move towards what your real goal is of creating great products. And then finally, over time, user behavior and expectations change, right? The first bullet point here is responsive design. Responsive design 5-6 years ago was kind of a, should we do this? Should we have an MDOT site? Should we do something else, right? Should we just have native applications? And now a lot of us scoff at the idea of building out a native application for our business because it's very expensive, and a lot of times people will install it and then they delete it within 5 minutes, right? Or they don't install it at all because they can't find it. So responsive design is pretty much a must these days. Personalization is something that's coming up and is even here with the advent of AI, machine learning, and then, cookies have been around forever. We've been personalizing with cookies forever, and if you haven't been, you should be, right? Speed and accessibility are two things that should be at the forefront of your thought. I really liked what John said about the under 3 seconds. It should be under that, really. If your page doesn't load in under 2 seconds, your customer is already bouncing, which is a lesson we learned this year, actually. So when to modernize? Well, you should always be thinking about it, right? But ultimately, you should be looking at changes in status quo. So things like responsive design was a change in status quo. We had mobile phones come in, tablets, and now if we take a look at traffic for last month, we had about 500,000 users. 50% of those users were on mobile and tablet. And about 30% of that 30% of our total users were mobile. So 20% were tablet, right? So when there's a change in status quo, or you need to catch up with the rest of the industry. Once you catch up, then you need to stay informed. That way you can continue to catch up. And then you need to look for opportunities to get ahead so that you're not trying to catch up with your competitors, but your competitors are trying to catch up with you, right? Ultimately, that should be your goal. What to modernize? So here's a fun little graphic. I had some other slides previously, and then I realized that my talk was like 40 minutes, so um, it was all building up to this, right? But the idea here is that you've got some opportunity, you've got some technical debt, and you'll notice that the largest circle here is business need. As a product manager, it's my job kind of to rein in some of the developers from time to time and say, hey guys, listen, this is really cool stuff, but how does this serve the business, right? And ultimately, by serving the user, you're serving the business. So we need to look at our opportunities for modernization. We need to take a look at what our technical debt is. In other words, that gap between us, our competitors, and what the modern world is, or bleeding edge. And then we need to take a look at our business need. And wherever those cross over could be a really good opportunity for modernization. So finally, Avoya Travel's journey to modernization and what it's meant for us. So when you modernize, sometimes you need help. We contracted Ortus Solutions, and we've been working with them in partnership for 3 or so years at this point. They've helped us immensely with several projects. We just didn't have the know-how. We were working very procedurally. We didn't have build processes in place. We were very legacy. But getting their help hasn't meant that we haven't had to grow. It's been a really fun journey, and we've certainly had to learn from them over time. Okay, it's building. So our original stack was very manual. We had proprietary CF9 stuff in place. In fact, we're still running on CF9 in a couple of our smaller applications. jQuery, proprietary JS, very manual build processes. There was a moment in time when I was literally minifying my JavaScript code. Like, I would go find a website, I would take my JavaScript, copy and paste it over, hit minify, and then copy and paste it back over to another file. So no gulp process, no Webpack, no Elixir, none of that fun stuff. So today's stack seems a lot more complicated, but we've got Lucy in place now, replacing all of our CF9 for the most part. We're utilizing ColdBox. We've built out RESTful APIs with the help of Ortus. We have a custom headless CMS. In fact, Gavin kind of alluded to some of the stuff that we've been doing with them, but that's really helped us take some load off from some of our teams. We're utilizing Vue, Nuxt, Tailwind. Yeah, Eric, we love Tailwind. So on and so forth, right? What this has resulted in the past year or so is we have seen a 20% increase in conversion rate year over year, which again, when you have 500,000 users in a month hit your site, that is an enormous number for us. Our average page load time utilizing Vue and Nuxt as a front end and ColdBox as a back end has reduced our page load times significantly. Now here I have 37%, but if we were to look at some of the key pages, it's probably more along the lines of 50 to 60% decrease in page load time. As I said, with the custom CMS, we now had, over the past 3 months, we have what's called Wave, which is our big sales period, right? And that starts in January, ends in around April, May. And over the period of 3 months, we were able to launch 50 sales campaigns, and nobody in my team had to touch the code whatsoever. We had business intelligence people, or I'm sorry, business reps, we had marketing people, we had salespeople. They were all able to go into the CMS, build these pages out, all completely custom design without us handling anything. And that was, I mean, some of those pages could cost us 2 days for one of my developers. So that was a huge savings for us. Greater visibility than ever. We've got multiple tools in place to view what's going on. We've got Fusion Reactor. We're working on getting Sentry to replace Buglog. We just employed APM Elastic. If none of you are familiar with that, that's been a huge help in identifying issues in our APIs and the speed at which they respond to us and how often they fail. And in some ways, what's the most important to me is excitement with my teams, right? And the ability to get more product and user-centric with my products. When you're working with teams, and when you're on a team, and when you're working with stuff, right, and you're staying still, you're staying stagnant with your technology, and you're not moving forward, it's not just that your company could die, your teams could die. You can lose people. You can lose great people because they don't want to sit around and be bored. They don't want to be stagnant. They want to move forward. They want to grow. They want to build themselves. They need to be excited about what they're doing every day. And right now, we are. We see a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're moving forward with our products. So, finally, legacy isn't bad. It's where you were, right? It's how you built your company. And technical debt isn't scary. They just need to be taken seriously. Similar to financial debt or any liability for a company, they need to be considered and managed, or you can get yourself in real trouble. Modernization may look like you're complicating things. You see our old stack and our new stack, right? Our new stack is much bigger. There's a lot more tools to manage. There's a lot more to think about. But when you employ it correctly, it really does simplify the overall process. I'm now looking at reports instead of going and fixing bugs every single day. That's huge for us. And ultimately, like I said, what this is all about is your end user, right? How fast are your APIs? How good is your front end? You need to be able to focus on those things and not be fixing bugs or worrying about, patching this or patching that all day. So you want to serve your customer. That's it. Thank you very much.